good morning. Does anybody know where Maple Plain is? Yes, all right. Get to Maple Plain, for those that don't know, you leave Chicago on 94, you drive up through Wisconsin, across Minneapolis, get onto the 394, continue heading west onto the 12, and you hit the first stoplight west of Chicago. That's Maple Plain. That's where I chose to do this study. Why? Why Maple Plain? Well, I was a sitting member of the Planning Commission at the time of this, so I was actually somewhat involved in what we were doing there. This kind of shows its relationship with respect to some of the other cities that we've briefed here. Corcoran to the north, just north of Medina, Tonka Bay down to the south. Maple Plains is very much a middle-class community in the middle of some very wealthy environments out there. It's three-quarters surrounded on three sides by Independence, and then it borders Orono. All right, Orono and Wayzata, part of the Orono School District. So very much influenced by the communities that are on the lakes west. It's been around for a little over 100 years as a city. It's 1.1 square mile. It does have its own fire department, all volunteer. It relies on West Hennepin Public Safety, which is a co-partnering with the City of Independence. It's part of the Orono School District, so the way I look at it is we get to live in a middle-class community out here while utilizing what's essentially a private school of Orono, and it's very much funded as such. They also have the Discovery Center, which was at one time an elementary school in Maple Plain. When the population decreased, which I'll cover in a moment, they changed it into early childhood education, adult education. It's very much utilized by the community for other things. The highlight of Maple Plain is probably McGarry's Pub. That's what most people come to town for. It's an Irish bar located there. A very nice upscale Irish pub. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to the downtown. What you see here is a thrift store that's open one weekend a month. You got a photography studio. You got City Hall, which is sharing a building back around the corner, and some historic buildings. One gas station itself in the town. There's two stoplights, so it's not just a one-light town. There is a Hennepin County Library branch. The city considers itself fully developed, whereas the Met Council says has it listed as a developing community, and I'll explain why in just a moment here. Okay, the population, as was stated here, we're not going to meet the 2030 planning figures that were set out in the comprehensive plan and the Met Council goal. In 2010, it was expected to have 2,045 people. What we ended up with was, according to the census, was 1,768. Again, the housing market dropped. The development did not take place that they were expecting out there, and it's just not growing. It's 97.7% white. It's not a very diverse community. 65% of the housing units are owner-occupied, so there is a lot of rentals going on. There is a lot of apartments that are multi-units, and of course, some of us do rent. There is no ongoing construction out there. There's nothing planned. There is nowhere to grow. It's all going to be infill as we move forward. It is meeting its affordability goals set out by the Met Council through an agreement where the Met Council agreed to lower their goals and their standards to say that what you have is good enough. So they're meeting that as far as the rentals go. They're still looking to get some more multifamily out there, and they're planning for that in some mixed-use areas. This goes over the percentages of the lands: 36% residential, 5% commercial, 16% industrial, 5% institutional, 4% parks, and then this one here, 28% agriculture, but that's not really accurate. What you see up here as the undeveloped areas is pretty much the wetlands. We've got a lot of wetlands, and then this larger green area in here is actually Indian burial grounds, so that can't be developed either. So a good portion of the community cannot be developed. You have parks located here, community center here, and another park here. Three large parks, fairly walkable city, and in a good location. Again, this just goes over with the breakdown of percentages of the existing land use as per the zoning map. What they're trying to do is put the industrial park up here. This is all, the yellow is single-family housing that they're looking to get. The darker yellow is supposed to be multifamily or higher residential. This is supposed to be commercial. You've got the downtown district in here as well. So that's what they're trying to get to. Working our way there. The densities. Currently, the R1s, 1 to 4 units per acre. The medium density residential is a little bit better than that, but I think it could be greater. And high density is planned for it. All of these are pretty much going to be in mixed-use districts that they have formed and are working. All right. We abut the Park Baker Regional Park Preserve, so there's good parks in the area. The city does not feel that they need any additional open space because they already have the existing parks and the regional park just across Highway 19. Good access to trails, camping, and lakes as it is. What this also shows is the redevelopment districts. There are 3 of them: the Downtown District, Bud Avenue, Highway 12, and the Gateway District. Again, their primary asset and their primary liability is Highway 12 running through the center of town, as well as the railroad that cuts through. The traffic on Highway 12 is considered at capacity and is expected to grow as the communities to the west, like Delano, continue to grow. The traffic density will only increase, further complicating the walkability of the town. This shows what they'd like to do in the Gateway Districts, or Downtown District, and in the Bud District. None of those are happening right now. We're not expecting any significant investment. The downtown area does have a parcel of land where the current city hall, a gas station, a couple other buildings and open space. The city has acquired that property. They've opened it up for development. They'd like to get a new city hall in there with mixed use. So far, nobody has come up with that. Again, there's parks, walkability. Being the big part, the city is all about green space, stepping to it, walking, a lot of walking in the community. No sidewalks for the most part. The streets still have very little traffic on the side streets. The kids play in the streets and people walk as they. There is a new park and ride. We don't have a bus service out there yet, but eventually we'd like to get a bus that people can park and go. Again, being at the terminus of Highway 12 here where it starts the bypass, it's a perfect opportunity to bring people in, develop that district, put in commercial, and go from there. Audit results, they were achieved 78%, which is fairly good for a community that can only do infill. And to do that, we need to get some investors, control the traffic on Highway 12, and get some mass transit out there. Any questions?
I just have a question. So the 2.3% of the population that isn't white, I was just curious if they were members of the tribe that's burial grounds there, and if they had any sort of like cultural tension in the community.
No, for the most part, it's not even remotely related.
So does anyone kind of like maintain that area, or is it just set off and nobody really?
It's pretty much just fenced off and left alone. Nobody really goes through it. Yeah, the community is such that if somebody that's not white moves in, they know it. I mean, the people that rented the house before us, they knew which house we were moving into by the people that were there before. It's not exactly friendly and open to new people coming into town. They like their community. They don't want a lot of change. They want to be left alone.
I have another question. So you went through the plans for the downtown mixed use really quickly, and the rendering showed kind of more like a courtyard area between some of the buildings, but the slide before that, it kind of wasn't clear how much of that might be parking, and I just wanted you to go back to that slide.
Absolutely. Actually, the plans with the parking is to have one parking garage set down here, and they'd like to close off these streets and make it a walking area only downtown. They'd have a community center and a courtyard for a gathering place. Right now they have their little hobby shops, their flea markets. They do all of that out in an open field, so they'd like to develop that into more of a community center, developing a new city hall and a community center around that area to bring the attractions in. Utilizing, of course, McGarry's is a big draw down here, bring people in to eat and celebrate downtown.
Did you talk about how they're going to try to finance this, or?
Well, it's going to require some private investment, and at the same time, the city owns the property itself, so they're looking to partner with somebody coming in. Because they own the land, they don't have to go through the cost of acquisition. They've already done that. So they're able to offer some incentives as well as, hey, we want a city hall out of this as well when you build this community center.
Since you were kind of involved with this process, what was it like working with Met Council? You were talking about like the kind of the agreement that the city forged with the Met Council to kind of reduce some of these expectations or the benchmarks.
Well, I didn't get to deal with them, so I can't exactly answer that. But the community's got a pretty solid city administrator who is a pretty quick talker, pretty good at getting things done, and the community itself is pretty political as that goes. they've been able to secure a lot of grants through the Met Council for a lot of the projects that they have there. Some of the redevelopment of downtown right now includes some sidewalk initiatives to renovate some of that, bring that up to standards as well.
I might have missed this, but for employment, do the residents mostly work within the area, the city, or do they commute out to work?
You know, as many jobs, although the jobs match pretty much the number of people in the city, it seems like the people in the town pretty much go elsewhere to work and other people come into town to work, looking at the numbers. So there's a lot of people that commute to other places. A lot of the shops that are in town are, you've got the industrial park, so you've got some high-tech plastics type businesses out there. Then you've got sports, the extreme sports businesses on the west side of town, a lot of auto body and repair shops in town. You've got the horse, Ace Hardware, the horse company down there that handles all the horse feed. We've got our own shopping center, privately owned in town. We do have another bar called Moni's out there, so if you're upscale, you go to McGarry's. If you're somebody like me, you go hang out at Moni's with the folks. And that's pretty much where we go with it.
Is there any concern about the industrial park being right next to the wetlands if you're doing things like making plastics?
They've had no concerns or issues with them at this point. Although I will say that they are very accommodating to get businesses into town and very much willing to work with them, including reducing parking requirements when asked for, if it makes sense. Some businesses are mostly warehouse out there, and so they were able to reduce some of the parking requirements there by reducing the amount of asphalt that had to be put down. So they do work with the companies coming in. We also had another person who was doing some artistic work or manufacturing, however you want to define it, inside of his home. They kind of changed their definitions a little bit to allow that as a permitted use for home use occupation. So, again, trying to keep the businesses that they have. We'd like to encourage more.
Can you explain your the first recommendation a little bit more?
Highway 12. Because the traffic that comes through on Highway 12, the north side of the town is pretty much split from the south side. There is no efficient place to cross the streets at this point. The stoplights that we have are on each side of town, on the west and the east side. Therefore, the center part of downtown, where you'd like to cross from the north to the south, there is nothing. We have received a grant from MnDOT to put in a hawk crossing system. What this is going to do is allow them to push a button and essentially activate the lights to stop traffic. Right now, traffic and pedestrians will have to wait upwards of a minute or two at the intersections to try to find room inside of the traffic going each direction to either get onto Highway 12 or to cross it. So it's not very friendly. Other alternatives considered are pedestrian bridges, tunnels. None of those were feasible. Highway 12, as it leaves town, branches out into an expressway. There's no other real stop until you turn into a 4-lane highway and then 6-lane coming in. Ideally, when they put 12 in, this would have been more of a freeway. However, the community did not want additional stoplights because the requirement was you'd have to put in medians. That would restrict access to the businesses coming from either directions on the highway. So the community itself did not want to limit access to its roadside businesses. Therefore, the medians weren't put in, and therefore no additional stoplights were put in. That option was presented, and the community was not in favor of that. This hawk system is a temporary solution, in my opinion. I think as the traffic grows, it's going to become completely untenable, and they're going to have to find another solution. This is one of those where the town itself is going to be dominated by the highway. The highway is either going to have to be raised or diverted around, but with the railroad tracks and the lakes around it, there's really nowhere to go. So I think the town itself is going to have a real challenge ahead. At the same time, though, you got all those people commuting through there. There's opportunity in these mixed-use developments to have people pull off and stop. But we don't have fast food restaurants in Maple Plain. There's none. We don't even have a McDonald's. You have to go down to Long Lake for that. All right, there's a Subway, but it's technically in Medina across the 19. So we don't have any of that. Small town, quiet community.
Thank you.